Hello, everybody. A very, very warm welcome and a happy Diwali. There are many familiar faces, but also some new faces. So I'm the author of the book, Sumana. I want to extend a specially warm welcome to Pandit Arun Kashalkar's brothers, who are all here with us. So they've come from Pune and Alibag. To begin with, I want to express my deep gratitude to my publisher, Westland Books. I have been really touched by their enthusiasm for this project and book, right from the time they commissioned it till today. And everybody from the commissioning editor, G.S. Ajita, who publishes the Context imprint within Westland Books that has published this book, and the copy editor, the cover designer, the marketing head, and the Bombay representative. It's been truly touching. I also want to thank the G5A Foundation for Contemporary Culture for offering us this venue. By launching this book here, in a sense, we are saying that Khayal, which is the music that this book revolves around, is very much a contemporary art form, even though its roots might lie hundreds of years in the past. In particular, I'd like to thank Anuradha Parekh, G5A's founder and honorary artistic director, and Shreya Venkatraman, an associate who has helped me take care of the logistics over the past month with a great deal of patience and sensitivity. I'll just quickly take everyone through the schedule for the evening. We will begin with a recital by Swara Joshi, who is all of 13 years old. She was first trained by her mother, Kavita Joshi, who has been learning from Pandit Arun Kashalkar, our guru, for nearly 3 decades. Swara then began learning directly from Guruji. During our annual Guru Purnima performances this August, my fellow student Yogesh Jahagirdar introduced Swara by saying that she is the child who gives us parents a complex. But he said it in Marathi, in which this phrase has a much nicer ring. He said she is the balak who gives the palak a complex. Accompanying Swara will be Praveen Karkare on the tabla and Siddhesh Bicholkar on the harmonium. They are outstanding musicians and wonderful human beings. After Swara's recital, my Guruji Pandit Arun Kashalkar will say a few words. He will say it in Marathi, and Chetan Sharma, my fellow student and animator, will translate the best he can on the fly, because I just told him to do it 10 minutes ago. After my Guru says a few words, Naresh Fernandes will release the book and set it off on its journey into the world and say a few words. Naresh Fernandes is the editor of Scroll.in and the author of 2 excellent non-fiction books, The Taj Mahal Foxtrot, The Story of Mumbai's Jazz Age, and City Adrift, a short biography of Bombay. I felt that he was the ideal person to set the book off on its journey into the world for 3 reasons. His books are great examples of narrative non-fiction, the genre that I have adopted for my book, because he has written about Mumbai and music, and specifically a genre, jazz, that, like Khayal, involves a lot of improvisation. And also because, very importantly, Scroll.in carries some of the best writing today about the Indian performing arts, especially Hindustani music. He will then introduce Namita and me, and Namita will be talking to me about the book. Following the discussion between Namita Devidayal and me, there will be a question and answer session. Again, there people can ask questions in any language, English, Hindi, and Marathi. And again, I will request Chetan to translate the questions. After the question and answer session, people can buy the book, and both Pandit Arun Kashalkar and I will be there available to sign them. And finally, very importantly, you can unwind and chat over drinks and appetizers in the Port Kitchen and Bar just outside. The Port Kitchen and Bar makes excellent food. And for drinks, we have wine. And for those who don't drink alcohol, we have soft drinks. I want to thank my schoolmate Rajiv Samant, who is the founder and CEO of Sula Vineyards, India's largest winery. When I posted news of my book release on my school WhatsApp group, Rajiv immediately and very sweetly offered to send me cases of wine. The wine he has sent is a rosé made of Grenache grapes grown in the Nashik Valley. We have representatives from Sula here, so you can ask them more about wine. So that's the plan for the evening. And now I will hand over to Swara. She will begin with Rag Durga and then sing Bhairavi. And she will explain the bandishes and the tals she's using.
Namaste all. Today I shall be singing a Vilambit Khayal in Rag Durga set to Tal Tilwada along with a bandish composed by my Guruji Pandit Arun Kashalkar in Ek Tal, Adrut Bandish. After that I will be presenting Rag Bhairavi, my Guruji's famous bandish in Teen Tal. I'll start. sa re ma pa da sa re re ma pa da sa sa re ma pa da sa re da ma pa da sa re ma re da sa re sa ma pa da sa da ma pa da sa da ma pa da sa re ma pa da sa re da re sa da ma pa da sa da ma re sa na manungi da ba da ma sa da re re ma pa da sa re ma pa da sa ma pa re ma pa da sa re ma pa da sa sa da ma pa da ma pa da sa da re sa da ma re sa na manungi tumhari batiya na manungi na manungi देवनपति महादेव पंचवदन शिव पिनाक विषधर पंचवदन शिव पिनाक विषधर गौरी हर गिरिजापति शंकर गौरी हर गिरिजापति शंकर त्रिपुरारी गंगाधर हर हर त्रिपुरारी गंगाधर हर हर रसदास कहत सुमिरन कर मन महादेव महेश्वर देवनपति महादेव 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 महेश्वर महादेव महादेव महेश्वर देवनपति महेश्वर चंद्रभालधर कर त्रिशूल डमरूधर महादेव महेश्वर महादेव द पम गरे ग सारे सा महादेव पद नि सा पद पम गरे ग सारे सा महादेव पद नि सा नि रे सा नि द पम गरे ग सारे सा महादेव पद म प म द पम गरे ग म पद म द पम गरे ग सारे म गरे ग प म गरे ग द प पद नि सा नि रे सा नि द प पद नि सा रे ग सारे सा नि द प म गरे ग सारे सा महादेव महेश्वर चंद्रभालधर गरे मोंडमाल चंद्रभालधर गरे मोंडमाल कर त्रिशूल डमरुधर नीलकंठ महादेव महेश्वर देवनपति महादेव हे पंचवदन शिव पिना पंचवदन शिव बिना कविशधर पंचवदन शिव बिना कविशधर गौरी हर गिरिजापति शंकर गौरी हर गिरिजापति शंकर त्रिपुरारी गंगाधर हर हर त्रिपुरारी गंगाधर हर हर रसदास कहत सुमिरन कर मन महादेव महेश्वर देवनपति महादेव महादेव Thank you so much.
नमस्कार. सुमना मुंबईहून बंगलोरला गेली आणि माझं इंग्लिश बोलायचं वगैरे बंद झालं. त्याच्यामुळे मी आज तुमच्याशी मराठीत 2 मिनटं बोलणार आहे. आजचा खरा दिवस तर सुमनासाठीच आहे. कारण मी असलो तरी कार्य घडलं आहे तिच्यामुळे. त्याच्यामुळे सगळ्यात पहिल्यांदा अभिनंदन सुमनाचं करायला पाहिजे.
I don't think it bears translation.
मला वाटतं संगीतावरच्या आत्यंतिक प्रेमामुळं सुमना साऊथ इंडियन शिकलेली होती, परंतु नॉर्थ इंडियन म्युझिककडे सुद्धा वळली. आणि नंतर मला माहीत नाही माझ्या गाण्याच्या प्रेमात कशी पडली, पण ती आग्रा घराण्याच्या प्रेमात मात्र पडली आणि नंतर शिकायला लागली. हळूहळू आकलन वाढत गेलं आणि ते इंटरप्रिटेशन करण्याची, म्युझिकचं घराण्याच्या दृष्टिकोनातून सुद्धा इंटरप्रिट करण्याची जाणीव पण जास्त झाली आणि ती कपॅसिटी पण वाढली गाणं समजत गेल्यामुळे. आणि नंतर त्याच्यातून हे इतकं सगळं पुस्तक बाहेर आलेलं आहे. हां.
Before it gets too much. So
रॅन्डम ट्रान्सलेशन काय
नाही मी एक्झॅक्ट करू पण नाही शकत. So Sumana ji actually has been studying music from a long time. She's learned Carnatic and then she got attracted to Hindustani music. She was learning for a while. Then at some point she discovered Guruji, which is a very important point in this book as well. And having discovered him, she was attracted to the Agra Gharana and to its music. And in learning the music firsthand from a master, she actually was able to analyze and interpret the music in interesting ways. And in looking at his life, she basically has ended up going through this whole journey of writing a book as well.
कोणत्याही कलेबद्दल विचार करताना किंवा त्याच्यात विचार मांडताना आपण आपला एक शोध कायम चालू असतो आणि त्याच्यात आपण आपल्यालाही शोधायला प्रयत्न करतो आणि त्याच्यातली कला कुठे आहे ते पण शोधायला प्रयत्न करतो. त्या दोन्ही दृष्टीतून लेखकाला हे स्वातंत्र्य असतं की त्यांनी आपली पण मतं मांडली पाहिजे आणि लेखकाला ही जरुरी असते की सगळ्या गोष्टीकडे वस्तुनिष्ठ दृष्टिकोनातून पाहिलं पाहिजे. या दोन्हीचा मेळ सुमनानी अत्यंत उत्तम तऱ्हेने घातलेला आहे असं मी सांगू इच्छितो.
Well, with all of music being a search for oneself, in the writing of a book itself is an art, and in that art Sumana ji has not only managed to put down his life and the events of his life, she has also tried to remain objective to the socio political or all the situations around him, and she has tried to put all of that in the book to the best of her abilities.
आणि शेवटी हे पुस्तक संगीतासाठीच लिहिलं गेलेलं असल्यामुळे संगीतातल्या बारीक सारीक गोष्टी त्याच्यात भरपूर आलेल्या आहे. आणि मी हे पुस्तक लिहिण्यासाठी होकार देण्याचं कारण असं आहे की घराण्याची किंवा गुरुची शिकवण ही सगळ्यांपर्यंत पोचावी. प्रत्येकजण आपल्या गुरुकडे एका विशिष्ट नजरेने पाहत असतो, पण तो गुरु आपल्या गुरूंकडे सुद्धा विशिष्ट नजरेने पाहत असतो आणि अशा परंपरा जोडलेल्या जातात आणि त्या परंपरा पुढे चालत राहतात. ते आता तुम्ही गाण्यावरून सुद्धा बघता आहात. तर ह्या परंपरा पुढे जात राहाव्या, माझ्या गुरुजींचे विचार तुमच्यापर्यंत पोचावे म्हणून मी तिला तिच्या गुरुचं गायकीचं सगळं विश्लेषण करण्याची परवानगी दिली. का तर मला माझ्या गुरूंचं क्षणोक्षणी आठवण व्हावी आणि त्यांचे विचार तुमच्यापर्यंत पोचावे.
वा वा. Yeah, yeah. This is, I think most of you all have got the gist of what he's saying, but essentially it is that he has agreed to do this book primarily because he wants the stuff that he has learned from his gurus to also be made available to all of us at large. So I think that this tradition that continues from guru to student who becomes a guru to other students who are learning and who are doing, this is really the main reason for this book, so to speak.
मला माझ्या गुरूंनी शिकवताना जी जीवनदृष्टी दिली, जी तात्विक बैठक गाण्यामध्ये निर्माण केली आणि त्याच्याच बरोबर माणुसकीचे जे धडे दिले, हे सगळ्यात महत्त्वाचं मला हे मुद्दाम सांगावं असं वाटतं की आर्टिस्ट जर माणुसकी विसरत असेल तर तो आर्टिस्ट म्हणून घ्यायच्या लायकीचा नाही आहे. त्याच्यामुळे सगळ्यात पहिल्यांदा माणुसकी येते, त्याच्यानंतर आपली कला येते. आणि माणुसकीच्या दृष्टिकोनातून कलेकडे पाहिलं तर आपण तसं वागताना सगळी माणसं जसा आपल्याला आनंद देतात तशी कला पण आनंद देते, हे तेवढंच खरं आहे. त्याच्यामुळे ही माणुसकी सगळ्यात पहिले आपण जपली पाहिजे आणि ती माणुसकी आम्हाला आमच्या गुरूंनी शिकवली, हे मुद्दाम मला सांगावंसं वाटतं. माझ्या गुरूंना मी कोणावरही टीका करताना कधीही पाहिलं नाही आणि आपलं काम करत माझे तिन्ही सगळे गुरु आणि जुनेसुद्धा गुरु, माझे 6 गुरु आहेत, पण 3 गुरु मुंबईचे, ह्या लोकांनी कोणावर कधी टीका केलेली पाहिली नाही आणि सतत संगीताचा विचारच करत असत. ते मला मला ते मिळाले ते विचारधन ते मला तुमच्यापर्यंत पोचवायचं होतं की संगीताची सेवा जर आपल्याला करायची असेल खऱ्या अर्थाने तर ह्या सगळ्या दृष्टिकोनातून आपली मानसिक जडणघडण व्हावी लागते, तर आपण त्या गोष्टीचं व्यवस्थित लोकांपर्यंत पोचवू शकतो. ते आमच्या गुरूंनी केलं आणि ते मला तुमच्यापर्यंत पोचवायचं आहे, हाच याच्या मागचा उद्देश आहे.
वा वा. I think I will just barely underline whatever he said because I think it's very critical that what he has learned from his gurus actually, you must have figured that he's had 6 of them since his early childhood, is not just the art of music but the art of living as well, and that more than just the lessons in music, what he absorbed from his gurus and what he saw firsthand from them practicing their music was a humanity, was a sense of being or a sense of detachment and a sense of just love for the music and not for anything else. They didn't hanker for fame, prestige, this, that. It was all whatever was there, but their art was their primary calling, and that dedication to the art is what they passed on to their students, and that we are seeing in person here in so many of these people who have also learned from the same gurus. And I mean, we of course as students also get to see it firsthand. Okay, I might just interject a little bit of myself here, that we see this firsthand every time we sit down for a class or in any act of life. What you do learn from the guru is not just music. You learn a way of being, a way of living. That's what he wanted to communicate, and this book is a vehicle for that as well. Yeah, bola.
या सगळ्यात आज जो इव्हेंट घडतो आहे त्याच्याबद्दल मी सुमानाचं पुन्हा एकदा अभिनंदन करतो. पब्लिशर्स, इव्हेंट मॅनेजर आणि सगळ्यात शेवटी आपण सगळे जे आलात, माझ्या प्रेमामुळे आला, सुमनावरच्या प्रेमामुळे आला, संगीताच्या प्रेमामुळे आला, त्याबद्दल मी तुमचाही मनापासून आभारी आहे. धन्यवाद.
थँक्यू सर.
नरेश.
हो गया?
हाँ, हो गया. Yeah, we can do it here. The book, and I'll also release a copy, and then Naresh will say a few words and introduce Namita and me. So this is the book. Just remove the... So here, over to you.
Well, good evening. Congratulations, Sumana, and thank you for asking me to do this great honor. I've read a few sections of the book over the years in manuscript. I'm delighted to finally be able to hold it in my hand and smell it. Sumana Ramanan claims to have been working on this book for about 7 years. I think she's spreading fake news. The truth I can confidently reveal to all of you is that she's actually been working on The Secret Master for much of her life. As long as I've known her, Sumana, like Arun Kashalkar, the figure at the center of her engrossing book, has placed enormous value on the rigorous pursuit of knowledge and aesthetic perfection. I first ran into Sumana in the innards of the Times of India building in Boribandar, early, I think, in 1992, a time of innocence that was soon to be shattered when a mob demolished a mosque hundreds of kilometers away and set off an earthquake in our city. Sumana had just returned from Brandeis a little while before and carried back a world of ideas that she was generous to share. She would soon try to establish a study circle at which young journalists could discuss the radical economic and social forces that were transforming India. But she was also profoundly interested in art and culture, especially music. And when I fumbled for words to try to express why I was drawn to jazz, Sumana produced a host of academic articles to help me understand the ideas and the rambunctious debates that echoed through the music. She directed my attentions to the social theorist Adorno's writings on jazz and gave me a paper on why the newly emerging category of world music was a neo-colonial construct, a phrase I was probably hearing for the first time. Even then, she had the talent for trying to find a common language to link traditions. And she always made the effort to draw everybody into the world of Hindustani music that she so loved. She made me a mixtape of Tarana pieces to explain how similar it was to jazz scatting. All of the qualities that have made her an excellent journalist and a passionate student of music are embodied in The Secret Master. So it isn't surprising that as an epigraph to the book, Sumana has chosen a line from Philip Roth. All that we don't know is astonishing. Even more astonishing is what passes for knowing. Congratulations, Sumana. And may I invite Namita, herself the author of a wonderful book, The Music Room, and Sumana to talk about this book.
Just before we start off, is this on? Before we start off, I just want to clarify, I never learned Carnatic music, but I was, as I've mentioned in the book, I grew up in a house where I heard Carnatic music every day because my father, who was right here, sang every day. He was an amateur singer, but he was a passionate singer of Carnatic music. So I never learned for a day, but I heard it every day of my life since the time I was born till I left for college at the age of 18. And my younger sister learned very seriously. I learned, whatever formal training I've had is in Hindustani music. I began with the bansuri. Anyway, I don't want to bore you with all that. That's there in the book. But I just wanted to, I don't peddle fake news.
Sumana, what can I say? I mean, we're going to have to match this with after Swara and Panditji singing and speaking.
Yeah, it's from the sublime to the ridiculous.
No, this book is really special because I think we live in a time where, you know, the performative, the need for external validation, the sort of, just the whole idea of like being out there, being mainstreamized, whatever that means, is such an all-consuming sort of vibe that it's just really special when, you know, we celebrate the exact opposite, which is what this book is doing, among many other things. And I think what's so beautiful about it is that the characters and the sort of ideas in the book don't even necessarily seek all those things. And that, to me, you know, you've sort of subverted the whole idea of what is important and what is mainstream by suggesting that the main character in this book is kind of almost transcended that. I wonder if you can start by talking a little bit about why you've called this a detective story, a musical detective story. It's a wonderful hook, and tell us why.
Yeah, sure. So I need to back up a little bit. So all my life I've been writing about socio-economic issues, but at some point, I wrote one article about music, and that caught a lot of editors' attention. And the Mumbai Mirror, the editor-in-chief of Mumbai Mirror, who's here, Meenal Baghel, she offered me a column in Mumbai Mirror to write about it every fortnight. And in the first 2 months itself, I had heard my guru's name mentioned by many people. I had never heard him sing, but I had heard his name mentioned 6-7 times, as I've again described in my book. And so I just jotted down saying, oh, he seems to be some kind of city institution. And then for a completely independent reason, which I had nothing to do with, another friend of mine invited him to sing right across the road from me. And I almost didn't go because I had a very bad cold. And then I said, no, but I have to go. I've heard so much about him. So I went, I crossed the road and I went there. And as the music progressed, I was completely, gobsmacked by the scale of the music. And I had really, it was a very different sound of Hindustani music that I had not heard before. And, then it was clear that he was a composer. And I had not heard a Hindustani musician with this level of intricacy, who was singing with this level of intricacy in rhythm. At that point, I had absolutely no idea exactly what he was doing. It was all just intuitive. But I think I had heard enough, and I had trained in Hindustani music amidst my full-time job and raising my children. But I think, fortunately, I thank my earlier gurus for actually giving me the training and exposure to recognize that there was something very special. And he was also combining 3 gharanas very fluently. And so I knew that he wasn't just a city institution. But then I hadn't heard him. So that was the mystery. Then the second thing is he had come with a whole coterie of students. So I said, if he has so many students, and I've heard his name 6 times from different sources, what's going on? Because I was a regular concert goer. And so either there was something that I had missed, there was some gap in the way I was listening to concerts, or there was something deeper going on. So I knew, I'm a journalist, so I can instinctively feel that there's some story here, and I'm always looking for that. So then after that, I started the journey. And so the mystery was, why hadn't I heard him? And what is this music? How did someone in Hindustani music create this music? And who are all these students around him? What is this community? So it was a hunch. And then I made a trip to Mulund, which is as far as from where I stay in South Bombay. I used to stay. And so I went there, and I got drawn deeper and deeper. And initially, actually, for the first 2 years, I hadn't decided to write this book because I wasn't even sure whether I would continue learning. I started learning from him. And then I said, I'll try it for 2 years because I had a job. I said, let's see how it goes. And my children, I have twins, they were going to leave for college in 2 years later. So I said, let's see, after they leave, maybe I'll go back to a full-time job. But I never did because I got completely hooked. And it's not just him, but it was also the tradition. I've learned that his gurus were also not very well known, but their music was towering. They're staggering. Gajanan was his first guru in Bombay. Bombay, Gajanan Bojeshi, absolutely staggering musician who many people don't even know today. I mean, a completely towering musical figure. And then he went to Pandit Ram Marathe, and then he went to Pandit Baban Rao Haldankar, who's also a staggeringly deep musician. So I felt that there was a whole tradition that was not being given its due in the mainstream, because I was a reasonably serious listener of music, and I didn't know too much, and so I felt there was more in it. So that's how the whole journey started.
Thank you. I mean, how does one even begin to counter what Panditji said with such extraordinary humility, which is that, it's this whole tradition is so above the person, the practitioner at the time. So it's almost sort of irrelevant whether that person becomes big or known, because this is really a flow that happens over so many, centuries actually. So I wanted to read out a little bit, which is, I love the way you've sort of used at the end of every chapter, almost every chapter, you've paraphrased Panditji's own voice.
Not paraphrase, it's a quote.
Acha.
It's actually, because it's in italics, and I think we give him credit. We say -AK.
Yeah. So let me read this out, because it's very beautiful, and then maybe you can explain and sort of transcribe it for us.
Yeah.
I mean, translate it for us. While learning to write, every school child gets the same font as a model. The child practices copying it in an exercise book, and gradually the formation of letters becomes disciplined. But within that discipline, each child develops a unique handwriting, which eventually becomes so characteristic of that individual that it is used to identify the person. Even with two children who practice equally hard, a common model leads to different expressions depending upon each child's physical abilities, temperament, visual impressions, and cultural background. It's really moved me. So if you can just talk a little bit about that, because it's so quite the opposite of the way a lot of schools teach us these days, where you're sort of meant to just fit into a box, and that can destroy so many people, and at a very formative time. So.
Yeah, so I must say, when I started learning, I'll just give you a brief introduction to how I started learning and what I felt. I was completely not shock, but I was completely unable to cope with the class, because it was of such a high level. I was learning very sporadically on weekends, and here the scale of the class was so massive. There were professionals, and what I found is that a Guruji expected every student, no matter at what level they were at, to think like a Khayal singer. So from day one, he expected us to try and improvise at whatever level we could. And that was very scary, because I was used to just repeating what the gurus had sung, exactly what. So I think right from the beginning there was that sense that there was a space for individuality. And also, by then I also knew that Guruji had trained in 3 of the traditional gharanas, that's Gwalior, Agra and Jaipur. And I also saw slowly over time that his students combined these gharanas in the combination that suited their personality and tastes. And so, but of course, Guruji was very strict about rag grammar, and he wanted a very high level of control over tal. And so, obviously, on certain things, that the fundamentals, he was absolutely a stickler for form. But beyond that, he was always curious about what students might do. By mistake, I sang some phrase in Alaya Bilawal, which is probably not the traditional one. And I remember once he said, "Hey, that's not bad. That's interesting." And also, I remember in a class on Alaya Bilawal has a lot of curves, and I perhaps sang with a slight Carnatic accent. And he said, actually, that's interesting. Why don't you ask your father? You know, it's the equivalent to Shankara Bharana. Maybe you can get some ideas. Once you get control over this, you can even add a little bit of a Carnatic touch to, that can be your speciality. So so there was obviously a solid core that we could not violate. And in fact, a lot of people I spoke to for this book said that he is, you know, today one of the authorities on rag grammar, because he has a panoramic view of all the gharanas and has thought very deeply about the physiognomy of all the rags. And because each gharana has specialities of rags, and he has learnt in all 3 gharanas, he has that view. But then he has this like, you know, one of his students who's here is very passionate about the Jaipur Gharana, and he's allowed her to focus on that. There are people who sing in his mold, which is a Agra framework with Gwalior and Jaipur. There are people who sing much more in the Gwalior framework. So that was very, very nice. And I just want to read one thing, because this is my first class that I went. I also felt that the class, there was such a collegial feeling in the class. It's just a very short passage. 1 second. It's when I made that first. Okay. So when I went, they were learning Rag Bihagada, which is a much more complex version of Bihag. So that itself I was like just reeling from that. But I just went there to listen. And then I recorded every single class that I ever attended, and I would listen to it, both for the book and for my music. So they were sort of... the class was going on, and then one student, he's here with us, Bhavik Mankad, asked Guruji, some musicians say that we should stick to Gamapa Ga Sa in Bihagada and avoid the phrase Gamapa Mapa Ga Sa because that appears in Savani. And the only difference between the two phrases is the Mapa in the second phrase after the initial Gamapa. So Guruji replied, Gamapa Mapa Ga Sa is indeed a typical Savani phrase, but one can also use it in Bihagada, and he gave this explanation, which I didn't understand at that time, which I understood much later, and I've explained it in the book. And then he sang to illustrate, and so Bhavik said, Wah, wah. So such fine distinctions I knew contributed to creating a rag's ambience. I decided to later ask Arunji about this nuance, along with his use of the non-standard Darbari phrase at the concert. So he had sang earlier, and I used a non-standard phrase in Darbari. What also struck me was that Bhavik felt free to offer his opinion in a traditional learning environment presided over by a great man. Disciples are expected only to follow instructions, not to ask questions.
Sumana, there's a particular line where you talk about, you know, Khayal and beyond and what it meant for you. And I'm going to just read out that bit because it touched me as well. And then I want you to elaborate on that. No pun intended. Khayal resisted the homogenization and quick results valued by the dominant global economic orthodoxy of neoliberal capitalism. Whoa. This music entailed an unhurried unfolding and savoring of ideas and demanded a high degree of improvisation. It accommodated a variety of stylistic approaches and required decades of training to master. Khayal was the ultimate slow music, which, like slow food and slow fashion, represented an alternative way of living. For those who submitted to its lure, it could become both a salve and a salvation. Beautiful. So, I mean, just this idea of, you know, non-transactional living, something unconditional, something that sort of allows you to be. Can you talk about your own sort of need for that and why that's sustained with you, because really it is the opposite of a lot of imperatives that come into our lives today. So, I mean, I can really relate to that. I think it's what took me back to my music teacher long after I realized that I could never become a singer, you know. It's just that idea of like wanting to vicariously absorb that flow, that beauty.
Absolutely. So, you know, I went to Guruji in my 40s, so I wasn't obviously thinking of becoming a singer. I went for the same reason, and I very quickly realized how difficult this form is, the kind of sacrifices it requires, and I saw people making those sacrifices. And when I also took it seriously and practiced, everything else seemed so trivial. You know, the kind of petty jealousies and the petty needs that we have. And it occurred to me that if we could just be in this state and be involved with something so deep. I mean, and there are other deep activities, of course. There's a lot of stuff, but I think music is something that reaches directly into your emotions in a way that other performing arts may not be able to do. It's very visceral. It's very visceral, and some writers have said that it has the same emotional effect as love. You know, psychologists have said that it reaches so deep into you. So I think I realized, and we also were going through a period in the world when it was a very, I felt that there was a distinct dystopian turn, both in our country and in the global world. There were wars, there was a climate crisis. So on the one hand, I felt this was a refuge for me, and and also I knew that I was not going to become some singer, but just to focus on the journey and look at the beauty of the journey. And I also really admired all the students around Guruji who had committed their lives to this, and they were very educated and very intelligent people who could have done any number of things, but they did this in the 21st century. So that was really very important. And I wanted to say in relation to this, when my publisher sent my book to various early readers, one of the most astute readers was Ramachandra Guha, the historian, writer and columnist and public intellectual. And he, of course, wrote his formal response to the book, but privately he wrote me much more. And one of the things he said is that, yes, your book is about a musician, his music, his milieu, and about the history of the art form and the aesthetics, but it is also a tribute to Maharashtra's older but threatened tradition of austere and inner-focused cultural achievement. And I thought that was so true, because I was seeing it every day in Guruji and the students around him.
Well, I think after hearing Swara, we know that it's not threatened in the least. And every time we sort of think that, oh God, it's like all going to die out, there are these like gorgeous stars that emerge, and that's the beauty of this tradition, because there are so many people that seem to like want to draw from that well. But moving on to some nice controversial stuff, I'm quite actually amazed that you had the guts to take on some formidable cultural institutions. I don't think anyone has had the guts to do that in journalism for a while, for many reasons. And, it's actually very serious, that whole bit where you sort of talk about, well, the NCPA and even some of the private organizations like Pancham Nishad, etc. And this whole politics that comes into the performative aspect of music, like now we've talked about the private side and that how that is intact for the most part, but on the public side there's all kinds of things that are going on that really are quite disturbing, and I wanted you to talk about that because I think it's a very real issue, and with there has to be patronage, enlightened patronage. The government is on its own trip, as we know, busy doing many other things, and so what happens there, and how did you go about doing that? Because that part has a very strong journalistic, investigative quality to it, and
Yeah.
well done.
Yeah. So I talk about the ecosystem after 1995. That represents the fourth stage of Hindustani music patronage. The first was basically mainly royal courts. Before that, it was in the temples, but when it became a professional activity, the patronage was basically royal courts. Then after some time, it was a combination of princely states and non-profit groups run by citizens. And that happened after a democratizing of the music by V.N. Bhatkande and V.D. Paluskar. So there was a combination of princely states patronizing it and non-profit groups run by ordinary citizens. Then after independence, the states stepped in a big way, in a very enlightened big way. We like to now the fashion among some people is to absolutely demonize everything that happened at that time. But they were the ones who set up All India Radio, the Sangeet Natak Academy, and the All India Radio was absolutely crucial in influencing people's tastes and giving a platform to musicians of a whole wide swathe of gharanas. So there was the All India Radio, and and the non-profit circles continued. But in 1991, after India instituted these reforms, opened up vast areas of the economy to private investment, both local and global, we saw the rise of companies who began organizing concerts as a business. And initially, they were able to present artists that had aesthetic integrity because they were catering to an audience that were from the All India Radio generation. But what happened slowly is there was a decline of radio, the rise of TV and private channels, and radio absolutely slipped off from the lives of most Indians, at least the middle class Indians. So, in the absence of that, they had to market musicians to marketers who had never heard of many of these musicians, had not heard this music, and to audiences who increasingly had not heard this music. So, in fact, one of the organizers told me that he went to a marketing executive and said, "Can you please, give us money for XYZ musician?" And that marketer said, "Why? I've not heard this musician. Just put Bhimsen Joshi on." Bhimsen Joshi had passed away 10 years ago. So, this is the first time, and this is in the fourth stage of our system. And I wouldn't even call it patronage, because patronage is something you do without expecting any returns. And so this is the system, and there are some musicians. So it's created the market imperative, and as we know, the market does not function well in many spheres. And it doesn't represent the perfect competition that we're supposed to see in economic textbooks, which creates efficiency. There are monopolies everywhere. So they have monopoly power and they can do what they want. It's not just here. It's even in any ecosystem. Even with our forests and rivers, we're unable to prevent businesses from despoiling those natural resources. So it's a larger problem, but since I'm writing about this and I'm a journalist, I focused on this and saw that this is what was happening, and increasingly they only want, so it's given rise to the star system. So once you're a brand, you can keep the businesses. That's how they work. They're businesses, right? And I think if we are an enlightened society, we need to have countervailing forces. And in any situation, if we as a civilization believe this activity represents excellence over many centuries, we need to protect it from the untrammeled writ of market forces. And I saw another ecosystem which was different, which was the Carnatic music ecosystem. It has many flaws, as T.M. Krishna has pointed out again and again, but in comparison, it is way better than what I've seen, because I see both on a very regular basis. I can compare the two. So that's the...
Yeah, I mean, so is there an answer? Did you sort of like think that there is something that can be done, or is it really something that we have to just kind of, deal with? And how did you find Panditji and other artists kind of counter that? Like, what did you think they did, or did they not even bother?
No, I think, a lot of, like, I know in my Guruji's case, and that's what I've shown in this book, his solution to this is to create his own ecosystem. So, at great cost, and it's not, I mean, you'll see all that in the book. It's a book actually of human striving. So, and music is just a setting, but it's also about human idealism and the toll that it takes on the individual and the people close to them. But the fact is that he decided that if my personality does not allow me to make a dent in the mainstream, and the mainstream, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to create my own ecosystem. So that is the heroic thing that he's done, because he's not only trained dozens of people, he's taught like hundreds of people, and about a dozen or more are very good singers. And he's done it all by himself with no institution support. And he has a huge group of listeners who really understand the music really, really well. So I think his solution has been, I will create my own ecosystem. But it has been very difficult, and he's not the only one. There are many people on the fringe who have struggled. There's Shubhadatai Paradkar, outstanding musician. She has also forged, she's an amazing... her story is also amazing. And there are many other musicians like that who have, there's Ustad Raja Mia here. So I feel that they have managed, but I think it has come also at a great personal cost to the people around them. And so it's not easy. It has been very difficult. And as for the solution, as a journalist, what can I do? I write about it. And hope that it will spark discussion, debate, and ask questions. And the thing is, what the problem is, even in journalism, somehow in music, people think it's some kind of, field where you shouldn't question these things, But every field has its politics, meaning the power centers. And as a journalist, my job is to identify the power centers in every field that I'm covering. And up to now, I have mainly been covering socio-economic issues. And I applied those rules to music. I saw the power centers, whether they're businesses or non-profits. Businesses are also power centers. You can't say, they're a business, so we should excuse, they will behave like that. They have to be held to account. Just with the way businesses who despoil forests and rivers and pay no price for it, we have to hold them all to account. So what I did is firstly is to identify who are the power centers, on what basis did they become powerful, and are they powerful in perpetuity? Are we going to? And I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat. So are they going to be powerful all the time? On what basis will they give up their power? And if they are powerful, who will hold them accountable? So I applied these principles that I had learned as an investigative journalist to music. So that story is also there in the book.
Yeah. Speaking of power centers, you've actually also commented on the prejudices against Muslim musicians from within.
Yes.
So it almost seems like, human beings are essentially fallible.
Yeah, of course. I mean, human beings are fallible.
And you can talk about Behram Khan as well, and, the whole story of the roots.
Yeah, sure. So yes, just as I took on, I've written about the music ecosystem and its pretty severe flaws. I also noticed because I was an outsider, I was an insider-outsider, I also noticed that a lot of Hindustani musicians uncritically supported the Hindu supremacist ideology that was on the ascendant at the same time that I started learning from Pandit Arun Kashalkar. And it was shocking to me because this art form that we have inherited, Khayal, is a supremely syncretic art form. You cannot pull the threads of Islam and Hindu out without ruining without the art form disintegrating. And so I had actually delved very deeply into the history of this art form, and I saw, it was forged in Sufi communities that also sang Vishnu Pads. So the syncretism is there right at its roots, and. So that absolutely disturbed me, and also the prejudices. So there's some of it were propagated by Bhatkande and Paluskar, who Janaki Bakle has very shown with great scholarship all their prejudices and bigotry, and basically there were many myths, but among the most common myths was of the illiterate and secretive ustad. So, firstly, it's very strange because Bhatkande got a lot of his information. So, Bhatkande was a musicologist who felt that he had to rescue this music from hereditary musicians who all happened to be Muslim. And I've gone into the book as to why that was the case. So, Bhatkande thought he had to rescue it from them and give a theoretical basis to the music. So, he got a lot of his information from Wazir Khan, who was a calligrapher, he was a poet, and he was an extremely erudite individual, but he still nevertheless propagated this idea of the illiterate ustad. And many scholars have now completely debunked this idea, including Max Katz, Dard Newman, and including Ashok Ranade. So that was one big myth. The other thing is that these ustads were somehow very secretive, and that was attributed to their religion. So I have kind of gone through the argument, which is that all musicians tried to keep their music within their families because it was a competitive field. It was competitive, and they kept the music from each other. So religion could not have been the reason because they were hiding music from each other. So it was not religion that was the actual cause of the secrecy. But then so we can ask, then why were most of the musicians from Muslim hereditary families? That was because, as we know, as in the caste system also, you tended to keep your skill within your family, and this started in the Sufi. Khayal was forged in the Sufi kankas outside Delhi, so it was kept in the families. And then there's also this whole thing about conversion, which I've got into, which is that yes, there was, like, Tansen was said to have converted, but it was not. I mean, if you look at the historical record, and I really feel we have to defer to scholars and experts, not politicians who have vested interest. So these are scholars who have told us that conversion in those days was a very fluid thing, and you could inhabit many different religious identities at the same time. And there could have been many. This one musician just absolutely told me, they were converted by the sword. That there is no evidence in any of the literature for that, at least among musicians. They converted because many of their patrons were Islamic, and assimilating to the power, to the patron is widely there in every field and in a lot of areas. I mean, why do so many youngsters wear jeans today? Because of the hegemony of the US, right? Why are we all speaking English? In addition to our mother tongue. So, and we do that, right? We inhabit our mother tongue, we inhabit English. So it is possible. There was a time in which you could inhabit many different identities at the same time. And even the Sikh, right? Every family had one child that was a Sikh and one child that was a Hindu. So it was much more fluid. And that fluidity is the beauty of the subcontinent. So so there's also, so basically I've examined all the stereotypes, and I have given historical evidence, and it is true that the ustads also had many stereotypes about Hindu musicians, because so they would say they had a very poor view of how their capability. So there's an incident in which Bhaskar Bua Bakle, he sings Rag Bahar, and all the ustads are so surprised because they thought he couldn't do it. They said, oh wow, he's a Hindu and he can still sing like this. So there are prejudices on both sides. I don't want to push that under the carpet.
Yeah. Sumana, so you talked about being a sort of a insider and an outsider, and I love that idea because I've been there. And this idea of being the participant and the writer, how was that, in what way was that challenging? Did you have a pact with Guruji that, he would have 3 areas that he could change in the book, or what was it that you kind of navigated with that whole experience? Because that's a difficult one.
That is really difficult, because so the person, the category of the participant observer is a common one in anthropology and in immersive journalism. So the advantage of being a participant and writing about it is that you get access and you get steeped in that community in a way that you never would if you just remained on the outside and kept going in and out. On the other hand, you can go native and fail to see some of the drawbacks of the community, or you might lose your objectivity, or the distance. And in this case, it was even more difficult because I was actually a student, so there was a power equation. So an anthropologist, for instance, might go to a community, let's say you have a white American anthropologist that goes to a community somewhere in Africa and tries to report. They are going as not, there's no power equation there, but here there was. So I had to be careful, but I think there will be very few Hindustani musicians who agree to the terms that I said to Guruji, which is that I will show you everything I write, but I don't promise to change anything. And I think it is because while this gives access, I also feel that there's a huge responsibility that comes with that access. And every time you report, you have to put yourself in the subject's place and say that if someone had done that to my life and did not do full due diligence, if I make a throwaway remark, or and I don't stay with that community long enough to understand the context of what is going on, that would be very unfair. And so I was just lucky that I had someone who agreed to these terms, who was extremely articulate and also a very open, to me, he came across as a Gandhian figure whose life was completely open. And as any of his students would testify. So I had to do it with great responsibility.
And very delicately, like there's one bit where you talk about, his wife pushing him a little bit and being more of the pragmatist while he was being the idealist. And so those kinds of lovely moments you've handled it very delicately. I don't think there's anything that anyone could be offended by. I don't know how much time we have.
Yeah, so maybe one more question and we can have...
So I guess, what is your favorite part in the book? You want to read a bit out to him?
Yeah, I can read a bit out. I want to do one in which Gajanan Bua, his granddaughters are here, who are wonderful musicians. Are they here? Oh, they would have liked this piece. When Gajanan Bua, Guruji comes from a very small town in Yavatmal, and he made his way Yavanmal district, and then he went to Yavatmal, then he went to Nagpur, then he came to Bombay, which is the capital of Hindustani music, which surprises many people, but it is, and it has been for 100 years. So he came here because all the great gurus were here, and the first person he went to is this towering figure, Gajanan Bua Joshi, and so I just want to give a glimpse of how he taught, how Gajanan Bua taught, and the effect that it had on his students. One evening, Arun approached his guru's bungalow with a spring in his step. To free up more time to practice, he had quit his job at the Accountant General's office, finding work much closer to Dombivli at the National Machinery Manufacturers at Kalwa, just 3 stations away. His guru was singing the composition Hazrat Turkaman in the Rag Darbari Kannada. So Hazrat Turkaman, to testify to the syncretic roots of this form, he was one of the first Sufis who came to Delhi. And as we know, Darbari Kannada is attributed to Tansen, who had a mixed religious identity. When Arun entered the room, the music hit him like a physical force. Arun wondered how his guru, whom he had been listening to almost daily for 3 hours, managed to summon up such intensity each time he sang. Everyone in the room was listening in hushed silence. Arun sat down and closed his eyes. "All right," Gajanan Bua said after a while. "Begin." Madhu started off. Madhu is Gajanan Bua's another very towering musician, is his second middle son. Arun liked to hear Madhu, who was 5 years older, because he had absorbed so much from his father. Madhu too quickly had developed respect for Arun because he could see that the young man was transparently in love with Gajanan Bua's music and was rapidly picking up his style. When Arun's turn came, he fluently sang the composition, which was very different from the first time he came to Gajanan Bua, and there's a scene there where he was completely lost and, and he was like, the music is so at such a large scale that I can't grapple with it. So it took him time to come to this level. Gajanan Bua then moved to the second phase of singing sargam sequences. So Gajanan Bua had a very interesting way of dinning the phrases of the rag and making students fluent in that rag. So making students, getting students to make that rag their mother tongue. So every rag is like a language, and you have to be able to improvise in that language where you speak spontaneously in your mother tongue. So he had a very brilliant pedagogy, which a lot of his students have adopted. A lot of them are here. My guru, then his youngest son, the Kashalkar brothers, Shubhda Paradkar, and his granddaughters Apurva and Pallavi. They were all, and there's a reason why they are one of the most effective gurus today. But anyway, here this is the story. When so Gajanan Bua moved to the second phase of singing sargam sequences. He had meticulously refined the chalans of rags. Chalan, literally way of going or gait, consists of the various phrase sequences that define a rag. For Darbari Kannada, Gajanan Bua sang a passage that went along these lines. And I've actually provided the notation. So, I've tried to approach talking about music in multiple ways. There's metaphors, then there's actual notation, which people can skip if they find it's too taxing. But I've tried to visually format it so people can see what the patterns are, even if you don't know anything about the music. And the third way is I've actually done this. Like I've brought people into the classroom, whether Gajanan Bua was teaching Guruji or Guruji was teaching us. So there's a whole passage of Darbari Kannada, and it's linked to a recording online, so people can even listen to it and see how Gajanan Bua actually taught this. By imbibing such sequences, students could gradually generate the equivalent of sentences and paragraphs in a rag, stepping stones to full-blown improvisation. After a while, the tabla player joined in. Now students had to mesh their singing with the tal. They sang one at a time, feeding off their guru on one another, spinning out one avartan after another. Avartan is the rhythmic circle within which one improvises. This is paradise, Arun thought.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sumana. Should we take questions?
Yeah, I think now we can take questions. And like I said, English, Hindi doesn't need translation. But
Only
Marathi,
questions,
Chetan,
no
where's
statements.
Chetan? Yeah, no statements, just questions preferably.
Wow, no questions. I guess
There-
they'll all be answered in the book, so pick up the book.
Yeah, there's one right at the back. Yes.
More about Amir Khusro's role, because it is supposed that it all started from him.
Yeah.
His influence and the Persian influence on the Indian
Yeah.
music. Thank you.
Sure. So actually, there is a pretty extensive narrative that I've put into the larger framework of narrative nonfiction. I've done some historical work, and actually, Amir Khusro did play a role, but he didn't start it. So there's a lot of myth around Khayal. Amir Khusro started it, or this one started, or that one started. So there is now, in the last 10 years, there's been a lot of academic research, and it's all a bit scattered, so I've pulled it together to give the story. So the way Amir Khusro's contribution lies in the fact that Khayal was a blend of Sufi forms like Qawl and Tarana, and a love song that was most probably the invention of Hussein Shah Sharki. So the Tarana and the Qawl were all influenced by Amir Khusro. So it has its roots. He contributed to creating those forms, but those were all, the lyrics were all religious, but there was this love song which was incorporated into this, and this was probably the Drut Bandish, the Chota Khayal, the fast version. So that's how Amir Khusro contribution, but then it went further over time, and Muhammad Shah Rangile's court, you had Sadarang, who slowed down the Khayal. So there are many stages which is there, with the whole history based on the latest historical research is there in the book. So many people contributed, and in fact the scholar Amlan Dasgupta says that Khayal is like a melting pot. It's like and he's also a scholar of English literature, so he says it's like the novel form, in which it accommodates, it can absorb many influences, but the original forms lose their independent status when they come into Khayal and get absorbed into the framework, which is the same thing that happens his argument is that happens in the novel form. So down the years, Khayal has evolved, but that to answer your specific question about Amir Khusro, that's what it is.
Yeah. I've read the whole book, of course. So, very interesting and intriguing section and chapter titles. What guided your choice? The different sections, the different...
Yeah. So,
even
okay.
if you can just read out, for example, the first
Yeah.
section, they'll have an idea of what I'm talking about.
So, just to give an idea of how I've structured the book, so there are 2 chapters which function like a prologue, and there's 1 chapter that functions like an epilogue, though I've not called it that. And then there are 3 big parts in between, and each chapter has 3 parts to it. 1 part is my journey, the other is the biography, and the third is actually small nuggets about Khayal, which ends with Guruji's quote. So that sort of, every chapter is layered, because that's the way I conceived the book, because it's not just a biography, it's also about the community that I was witnessing, and it's also about the art form. The art form also became a sort of like a character. And in between all this, I have woven in the history. So yeah, so the first, for instance, chapter is underground, because I call it the Hindustani underground, because it's not seen in the mainstream. So that was underground. Then it was a rabbit hole when I went into that underground and disappeared in it. And then, so then that was the first section is called mystery. The second thing is called clues, because I kept picking up, so all the question that I started with, I start slowly explaining what happened. So there's the clues. Chapter 3 is fakir, then storm and alchemy. So I wanted it to be just evocative, and I didn't want to have very long chapter titles, because as it is, there were 3 sections in each chapter. Yeah, there's a question here. Yeah.
So, Sumana, knowing you since childhood, I've always been mystified how, coming from a family so steeped in Carnatic music, you learned Hindustani music. And in fact, I remember you telling me once that in your home you would have debates with your father about the two traditions. Can you say a little about that?
Yeah. So my father did try to teach me, but I was a much more physical kid. He tried to teach me, and I never sat in one place, and I kept climbing trees and stuff. And he had a very easygoing attitude towards everything. Yeah, if you like it, I'll expose you. If you take it at, he said he was very easy. He didn't force me to sit and learn or anything. But then on my own, I heard an LP in his collection. So he listened to Hindustani music. He also listened to Western classical music. So there was an LP of Pannalal Ghosh, and it was Darbari Kannada, I remember that. And I was really taken up with that. And then I started learning Bansuri, and I've explained my whatever in fits and starts. So I learned from Ronu Majumdar. He was barely 3 years older than me, and he came to teach me and 2 others. And then I continued that. I mean, I started that, and I continued, and I couldn't because my parents moved here and there. So I kind of learned whatever was available close by. So what did we debate? Well, there was rhythm, for instance. I mean, Carnatic music has, very intricate rhythm. And I think there was a sense that where's the rhythm and where is a rhythmic dimension and maybe that's what also attracted me to my guru's music, because he's really taken rhythm to a very high level. As it is, the Agra Gharana does it, but he has thought even, and I've explained what his contribution in rhythm, and also because he had the 3 Gharanas and he was able to mix it. So rhythm was definitely one big factor that we used to keep arguing about.
I think there's no more questions.
One question I just wanted to ask. So an important aspect of Panditji's personality and his musicality is his ability to compose, and he's composed some brilliant compositions they've not just been something that his students have learned, but he's inspired so many others to compose, and a lot of us are huge fans of his compositions as well. Have you touched upon that in the book, and if you could talk about it a little bit?
Yes, I have touched on it because it's such a big part of his contribution. So in addition to creating his own new style and everything, he's composed prolifically. And that's, I think, partly because from a young age, he has been, after music, I think his next love is languages, literature and languages. He writes Marathi poetry, and his Hindi is fluent, and from a very young age, he actually made it a point to learn English whenever he could. In Yavatmal, when he went to study in Yavatmal, he was a paying guest of Bhausaheb Patankar, who was a Marathi ghazal writer, and he spoke English and he learned from him. And then when he came to Bombay, so languages was something very important to him. And when he learned from Baban Rao Haldankar, it was the Agra style, and Agra Gharana uses bowl to do improvisation. So different gharanas use different methods to improvise on the rag. Like Jaipur mostly uses akar, and so Agra Gharana uses the words of the composition, and they do very intricate improvisation based on the lyrics. So, and which is why a lot of the Agra Gharana musicians are also excellent composers. So it's sort of a natural progression. And plus, he always loved languages, so I think the 2 things led to that. I think, any more questions? Yeah, there's right at the back. Yeah.
Yes. No, this is related to the star system you sort of mentioned in the performing arts, and at least in India. You talked about institutions or the way art has been patronaged in the country, possibly causing this, and mentioned some differences between the system in the Hindustani tradition and the Carnatic tradition. What about did you also dwell into other performing arts and why such a system exists in one of them and not so much? I believe it exists in all the performing arts in the country and other places too. So do you dwell into these?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I do dwell, which is that in I didn't examine dance and other ecosystems. I just looked at music because that's what the book is about. But in Carnatic music, the market has been moderated by a very important non-profit organization, which is the Madras Music Academy, which with all its flaws, it is flawed, it has all its flaws. T.M. Krishna is pointing it out every other day. So it has its flaws, but the Music Academy sits on top of a non-profit tree of sabhas, which filter down into towns. And they are non-profit and they struggle for money sometimes, but it prevents this, and it has a method of getting very promising youngsters from the grassroots all over Tamil Nadu and other parts of the south to come up. And the Music Academy acts as somewhat of a moderating influence to what the market might do. And also I think that there is a role of journalism. The Hindu has played a very important role in consistently carrying concert reviews. People say that the standards have declined, etc., etc. But the fact is that in the Carnatic system, there is no taboo against criticizing very strongly very prominent and influential musicians when they fail to show the sobriety and taste that the art form demands, which is absolutely not the case in Hindustani music. And in Bombay, concert reviews have gone down. The Times of India used to have a lot of concert reviews. At one point it went down. Now Mumbai Mirror did a lot of good arts reporting, but concert reviews did not really come back into. And you need, because this is such a, to even understand the basics, you need to train for 12 years. So you do need intermediaries who are guiding listening. And that's the biggest problem today, the lack of informed listeners, which again in Carnatic music is a better situation, which you can see just from the comments on the YouTube channel. There's a question there.
Actually, I had few interactions with Panditji, maybe 5 or 6 because of my brother, Ravindra. I found that he has got, apart from his music, he has got a great sense of humor. So have you touched it in your book? Just want to know.
I think I have. But this book was actually double the size. It was 300,000 words, and then it slowly came down to whatever this thing. And there was one incident that I do remember. Right, he got a tremendous sense of humor, and so I remember there's this bandish, Vilambit Khayal in Yaman called Jia Manat Nahi Chain Na Avata. And I remember we were all singing it, and I was fumbling, and he said, if you're singing like that, your listeners also will, unko bhi chain nahi aayega. And he said it in such a gentle way that, you don't take offense. It's just funny, and you're singing badly. So, so it's full of, there's this one here. So in that same class that I went the first day, laughter. Laughter is just part of the class. It's all. There are 2 jokes even in that first session. When I said that, Bhavik asked this question, and I was a bit taken aback because I was not used to these traditional learning environments in which the student was asking this question. So here, everyone was trying. Yeah, so everyone was trying to sing Bihagada, and then one student tried, and then Guruji said, "What is the notation of what you just sang?" He asked a student who had attempted an Akar Tan. "Your notes are blurring into one another. Sing it first in Sargam form. You should know the spelling of what you are singing." Then people laughed. After several rounds, everyone sang the composition together one last time. At noon, Arunji brought the class to an end. And we had been singing, I was just an observer. They were singing this fast composition, his own composition, called Kaise Aun Piya Main Tore Paas. How do I come to you, my love? So he said, so people laughed. After several rounds, everyone sang the composition together one last time. At noon, Arunji brought the class to an end. "It is time for all of you to go back to your PRs," he said. Everyone again laughed, recognizing his reference to his own composition, the one that they had all been singing. Shall we wrap up? I think it's. Shall we wrap up?
He doesn't take himself as seriously as he takes his music.
Yeah, it's a very good comment. Yeah.
Actually, Guruji actually doesn't take himself as seriously as he takes his music, so which allows all sorts of students to flourish under his, in his vision.
Absolutely. I mean, why should he accept me as a student my mid-40s to go there and bumble along with all these beautiful singers? Yeah, so I think, is there maybe one more question and that's it? Or are we all maxed out and ready for the wine and the appetizers?
Sumana, I want to start by saying that you've done a wonderful, wonderful job. And is there a sequel that you are planning?
Oh my God, no, not really. What kind of sequel are you imagining?
20. Knowing you.
Yeah, so yeah, please join us. We can continue talking. There are appetizers, there's soft drinks, there's wine. So more discussion. And I also wanted to say that, I'm talking about power centers and they should be questioned. As a writer, I am also a power center. So I welcome criticism. I welcome discussion, debate. As long as the criticism is in good faith. I mean, after all, I've spent 7 years on it. So you can't just have a knee-jerk reaction to something I'm saying. No, it has to be slightly more. I mean, if it's good faith and rational criticism, I'm totally willing to discuss. I mean, I think this should start the conversation on all fronts. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm open.
They'll also have to read the book for that first.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, so what we're going to do is people can get a copy of the book there. I think Guruji will also need to come because many people also want him to sign the book. So we can move a chair here, and I'll just go get my. If you want signatures, you can come. In the meanwhile, you can also start going out. Come back later for the book, just to prevent.